Welcome back to Prince of Persia 2008. So now it's time to gain another new ability, I think. Yeah, actually, yes. The Breath of Ormazd.
Does it give us the speed of lightning and roar of thunder?
Well, kinda.
Reach fertile ground in the City of Light and the Veil.
So is there a character called Speed Line?
It's part of the theme song for Underdog.
Are you ready?
You have no idea what that is, do you?
No.
Anyway, these particular allows us to run up walls like that.
Whee!
It's actually really fun to use that. It's scripted, it's partially at least, but they're used for sort of an obstacle course where you need to dodge left and right, similar to a tempo until you reach the circle. So instead of, but they're less scripted than say the jump over Maz or the flight one, where instead they put you on a more strict path, or they just let you jump from tile to tile.
See, Ubisoft, now scripting like that, I'm more okay with because there's still some level of challenge.
Anyway, more
here and there.
visions.
It's part of the future. The future is not
Oh?
written. Oh yeah, I remember that pose. Yes, lay her down and everything. Oh no, it's the bad guy from Shadow of the Colossus again.
Oh?
Oh, but yes.
For a second I thought she stabbed him.
You were dead.
Yep. These were visions of the past, not the future. Erika apparently died. And in his desperation, her father asked Ahriman to resurrect her, and in return, Ahriman became free.
Fertile grounds had failed.
So Elika's kind of a zombie.
Oh, well.
Pretty much.
Looking
And that's
zombie.
also why she got the power of Ormazd in return, in order to stop effectively Ahriman, or seal it at least.
You'd never have done this.
And yet, again, apparently in Ahriman's great plan, he gave her the power to resurrect anyone who may want to rise up against him. Kind of a deal against it, dude. Again, I know, gameplay story segregation, but that's kind of hard to ignore.
You hear that, Ahriman? We're going to fix this. You're not getting out.
And it's all because you gave this woman the power to revive me at any turn whatsoever.
And it'll be all up to the...
Well, no, like I said, Ahriman wasn't really counting on that. It was Ormazd intervention. Ormazd is the typical Benin god who still does it whatever the fuck it wants. So it's more like a demiurge archetype.
So ironic. In a ploy to try and be the puppet master, our man ends up being played himself.
Kinda. Well, that's the thing. He was sealed for a long time. I'm pretty sure he hadn't any better plans at that moment.
Again, though, those plans are about to get wrecked because of the deal he made as part of his
Mr.
plan! Oh wait, no, why do I care? She can revive us.
No need to thank me.
Anyway, this next step, these next 4 levels will be Alchemist. Like I said, we're proceeding through tackling every general one by one. If you know what you're doing, if you know what you can do specifically, how to unlock the specific powers, because the game tells you which fertile ground they unlock, so that you can face each generals in block one by one. However, each power unlocks 2 specific fertile ground in 2 specific areas, over a total of 4 fertile grounds, in a sort of a cross pattern. In a sense, it unlocks 2 in a vertical sense and 2 in horizontal on another place of one of the generals. So if you know what you're doing, yeah, I didn't know in this case where to go. If you know what you're doing, you can easily face a general completely, in one go by unlocking specific abilities, or you can just mix and match however you.
Nice bout of freedom, I'll admit.
Again, like I said, this is one of the strong points of the game, a sort of a true freedom of exploration and deciding how to tackle, the levels. Like you don't want to go through this part just yet. You can save it Maybe you can pick it immediately and leave the good stuff for later on.
It's open world without needing to be Metroidvania-ish because you've got a very, very
or
nice
say
background.
Breath of the Wild.
So, Theo, from what I understand, the Alchemist is your favorite of the Guardians, is he?
The generals, yes. Mind you, personality-wise, it's not too different from the others. Again, like I said, it's another of the stereotypes, a person who were desiring something, so they gave up to dark powers and basically made a deal with the devil, in this case Ahriman. But basically, I kind of like the fact that the Alchemist is a bit more integrated with the corruption, that black goo that is everywhere and is associated with Ahriman. And the fact that he had a sort of an important play in having the kingdom of which Elika and her father were part of failing, because, you know, as we know, they failed. The concubine occupies the remainings of the palace as it was established, but the alchemist, was, thanks to his knowledge about the corruption, was very helpful in, you know, orchestrating the downfall.
So if I understood correctly, the Alchemist is at least one of your favorite classes?
In general, well, when it comes to, depends on the media, mind you. When it comes, for example, to Final Fantasy, not much of a bit because it's not used that effectively there.
Not really, no.
Aside from Final Fantasy V, in which, yes, it has an interesting role, but it's very basic. You have some callbacks here and there with, like, say, Riku in Final Fantasy X, but if I want to get some unconventional type of magical attacks with some wacky effects, I will click Blue Mage because it's positively broken. So.
Obviously.
But for example, yes, if for D&D, specifically Pathfinder, the Alchemist is one of my favorite classes.
Want
So
this magic?
Sure.
All you have to do is die and endanger the world, and then you too can do these things.
It's not your fault.
It doesn't make it better.
okay.
I see all the more similarities to Shadow of the Colossus the more we go further in with this. Woman?
Well, I guess the advantage here
Except our love interest is not asleep throughout the whole thing, I guess.
yeah, I mean, the
yeah,
weird similarity is like,
the
women,
advantage
just
here is
like...
that you have another character to talk with here and there.
It's
I
funny
guess
how,
so.
just like Shadow of the Colossus, the plot is kicked off by someone wanting to revive a dead loved one, who happens to be a girl, and also communes with a villain who speaks in both male and female voices and is all mysterious. Albeit here, we kind of know from the get-go that this guy's bad news. Whereas,
Pretty much. Well, that's the thing, Jova. When you really get down to it, we don't even know the extent of Dormin's villainess, villainy. Sorry. That the priest, the masked priest, was fearing him. But again, and the fact that he was sealed. But for all we know, Dormin was just
Trying to destroy the
some guy who was sealed because they feared his power. And if anything goes from being told by Guardian, is that the power of creatures with horns has to be feared because it's dangerous, but at the same time, it can easily be done for good things as well.
admittedly, Dorman didn't exactly make a good case for himself, considering how he ends that game, pretty much going psycho on the Master
Well,
Priest.
Jova, he kept his word.
True,
so-
he did. Then again, plenty of villains do keep their word here and there. Captain Hook, for instance. He technically always keeps
or
his word.
Technically speaking, Jova, even Hades, when you get down to it.
Yeah. Like, down to the letter of the law, to the point where it's because his word got broken that Hercules was actually able to do anything.
So we need to roll. This is a relatively simple puzzle, a crane puzzle. We need to rotate these platforms in order to match the wooden protrusions so that we can reach the fertile ground.
Not a bad puzzle.
Well,
It's fine. Like I said, this particular Prince of Persia game actually goes back in trying to take advantage more of the puzzle and acrobatic nature of the franchise. So I'm perfectly. You were saying, Pedro?
Well, it's typical in from evil gods to because they still, despite being evil, they still have a somewhat sense of honor.
Oh yeah, like God of War, anyone?
Well, yeah, technically, I guess.
It's not like that one from Mystic Falls where he tries to be honourable but just comes off as really, really stupid.
There we go.
Good work.
There we are. Oh.
Balloons!
Yeah,
Right?
apparently one similar to the Fire Nation, Alchemist had.
It is not that you cannot understand, it is that you do not even question.
I can't tell what level of pretension you're going for there,
Yes.
pal.
Close your eyes in blind faith.
Dude,
Even does the hand gesture.
dude, your skull with his mouth constantly open. You technically shouldn't even be able to talk clearly to us. Unless you're
Sorry,
speaking to
Jova,
Lilith.
you are small time.
I mean, because imagine how well his speeches would go if we were actually using your statistics and that.
I
Yeah,
am, and so I shall go hear you, and I shall kill you like
There
a
you go.
girl.
That's what happens when you try to use Elika when the enemy uses a barrier, but you can break only with a sword.
And yet she can still help you even when she's trapped.
Oh, she's just unconscious right now.
Again, though, if you die, she'll conveniently recover herself just to save you. Oh snap!
Again, though, despite the fact that there is a bottomless pit, not always the alchemist can be pushed down. A lot of times he teleports behind you, so it's not all the time. Ah, that goes up.
Again.
There we are. In this case, it actually worked.
How do we...
Okay, I guess he's done. You'd think he'd have teleported back up to fight us some more, but no, I guess he's a pussy.
That's the thing, it's a bit inconsistent. At least the concubine always instead it's the entire strategy against the warrior. But the alchemist zigzags this a bit.
Maybe he's trying
I'm
to play
guessing
with
it's
mind
connected
games?
maybe it's connected if it's present the corruption or not. I don't remember this.
So, let me guess. Your favorite is the Alchemist because he's just a pretentious dicko out of the way, isn't it?
Not just that, again, it incarnates all the mad scientist tropes. So compared to the average general, he's the one that sticks out the most to me. Maybe the concubine comes second, considering deception, lust, and everything, but I prefer, the alchemist.
So I'm guessing the Hunter's your least favorite, since, the Hunter kind of has the least amount of character to
You
him.
may leave that way.
Story. Believe it or not, Penny Arcade actually did a tie-in webcomic telling a bit about his backstory. Funny story, ever since War Within, Ubisoft commissioned Penny Arcade to do very small tie-in promotional comics about the Prince of Persia game. I know, right? And this one had one too.
Take your breath away.
Nice.
It shines like diamonds. I've seen walls...
Yeah, these animations are really. It's the exact same camera angle, you even the exact same way. Just
I think
But it turns to fire in your hands.
Use that.
I think the issue is that okay.
Sorry, what was that you said, Joy?
Diamonds.
I said they tend to do that a lot.
I think the issue is that okay, yes, you can't have every cutscene be mocap because you have a tight budget. Again, Ni no Kuni does this as well. Since Ni no Kuni 2 as well, they're also not mocap. But I think the difference is that when he directs those scenes, he usually has different angles and even has the characters do specifically different animations depending on what the characters are saying. Like for example, in that cutscene about the little girl who took care of that monster. At the end, when Evan is also saying yes, and I'm sure he'll always remember you as well, and then you see him looking up, smiling, like tiny touches like that help distract you from the fact that the characters are just standing around talking and not moving, But the problem is that this cutscene, the cutscenes in this game, the ones that are not mocapped, it's literally the exact same animations on loop all the time, and that's what makes it stand out. Like the director's not doing a good job distracting us from mixing things up, and
It's
Go ahead, Joey.
weird because even the original Prince of Persia, and by original Prince of Persia I mean I'm talking about the original 3D platformers, not the side scrolls. The Sands of Time trilogy.
Well, Sense of Time didn't even have a lot of cutscenes. Instead, most of the talking were just happening while you were doing things in the game.
Well, my point is like, Michael, even in like, well, you know, the Sands of Time trilogy, when they had cutscenes, it didn't feel like it was just one animation on loop. Like, it did feel like they actually geared them properly. Maybe it helped that there were different camera angles here and there, or, you know, there were cutscenes outside of this stuff here and there, but it's weird how the trilogy, which is older than this, feels like it did cutscenes even better. Yes, even Warrior Within, God help me.
Well, Joe, Warrior Within was not helped by the horrid graphic representation. Mind you, like we mentioned, it's better in the original PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, well, at least PS2 and GameCube releases, but it's still not saying much. Sometimes the character have weird and gesture. Sometimes there are weird close-ups of the prince face, which even with the shader looks a bit butt ugly, and it's not helped by the atmosphere of the game.
It was sad. It has to do with different angles. Like for example, like the most used animation of Evan is the one where he puts his hand on his chin.
Yeah, the twinkling animation.
The twinkling animation. Except if you notice that most of the time angles, you know, in those mini events, combined with the stuff that I said, you know, like different angles and you know, and the fact that we mix things up by having characters say different things and even say specific animations for that. It helps distract the viewer from the fact that he's just watching characters stand around and talking. You know, it has to do with, you know, distracting the audience from the problem. The problem is that this game... Oh, sorry, is this important?
Basically, it's where the next fertile ground is. At the bottom of a giant, you know... I help you with this one, Joe. What's the term of those gigantic containers, for example, used in Far West to hold water, shaped like a tower, for example?
A basin?
Yeah,
there you go. There you go. There's the same animations again.
Basically, it's at the top of a basin, but the Alchemist has dried it up, so we should be able to, you know, resail it.
Again, there's nothing wrong, and from what I've seen footage, even Horizon Zero Dawn, despite being a AAA game, even Horizon Zero Dawn has cutscenes that are technically just characters sitting around. The problem is that, like, again, games usually try to get around this by having different angles, spicing up the animations just a little bit.
It doesn't really help that these two are the only characters, major. We're stuck with basically 90% of the game. Therefore, all the attention is upon them, so we wish to see them doing different things, I guess.
Again, Sands of Time did this better when it was mainly just the Prince and Pharaoh. Like, well, we had different cutscenes with them, but again, this one doesn't do the job as well.
Didn't that game have a higher budget than this one, or at the very least more development time?
For its time, yes. This one, again, it's a bit rough. Wouldn't explain also why Ubisoft considered it a financial failure despite the 2+ million copies sold.
I know, right? Like, I mean, you know, if they considered a failure with the 2.2 million, then they must have put a lot of money into this.
Again, it's still part of the very big problem that most AAA companies, most companies these days have about the AAA curse. That in order to make the game of the best quality possible, you have to pump up so much money into it, and this results instead in a vicious cycle that ends up basically not having the game being doomed or not giving you enough of a profit, even if it sells like hotcakes.
That are companies just having insane expectations.
This happens also with the movie industry, of course. Then you have cases like Blue Mouse Production, in those cases where they have movies with like a $1 million budget that are bound to make like a gajillion profit, like Unfriended. Reminder, it was 1 million, so technically speaking, it did 63 times its budget.
It also doesn't help that the writing and characterization overall is not exactly stellar. So it's not exactly doing a good job in sucking us into the story.
Again, I swear it was such a stigma when 7th Gen came in that a lot of games that maybe when they first came out, people thought, wow, these are superior to the ones of 6th Gen. But now, nowadays, we kind of realize that, man, 7th Gen
Look at that, the handle even didn't clip right.
It's like, seriously, what was up with 7th Gen not really using the best of improvements to its level. Like, well, in some cases,
Jova, remember, the PS3 was a bitch to work with.
Well, wasn't this game multi-plat though?
Yes, but
I kind of doubt that this game was made with the PS3 as its development platform.
Yeah.
Probably the 360 was the
you
development.
have to remember though that it's still there was a problem that the PS3 was the only one with the Blu-ray technology in mind. Therefore, everything else had to be the fitting size-wise onto the DVD of the Xbox 360. It was released also on Steam, on PC in general, so that really doesn't have that much of a problem in terms of performance and everything.
Yeah.
But console-wise, usually when it came to the multi-platform, it was a bit of a mess.
I mean,
I meant usually for PC, Jova, because I know there are the shoddy PC ports, like say the 13 trilogy.
Oh heck yeah!
Think of it,
What I mainly talk about is like I'm talking about the 7th generation of gaming. It's like, well, except for Nintendo, and this isn't just Nintendo bias, but it's that Nintendo weren't exactly on the whole high definition graphics train until the next generation. The thing is, like, well, it feels like when it came to stuff that was out on Sony and Microsoft devices, it felt like, yeah, they wanted to make things more realistic and gritty, but also it seemed like they couldn't exactly let go of their roots, which more often than not led to a lot of clumsy bits. Like, you had this, you had eventually the DMC reboot, you had stuff like Bomberman X-Zero. It's like...
Mind you, those are like third-party companies, so I don't know how much, unless they were specifically commissioned by Sony or Microsoft, it was only a decision of the third party.
Well, that and Bomberman X-Zero was a 360 exclusive.
I'm not saying that Sony and Microsoft, licenses. I'm talking about like, well, they just happened to come out on Sony and Microsoft more so because Nintendo weren't on the HD train.
Yes, this particular fight is a bitch because you're found in a small arena, surrounded by the corruption. So the Alchemist has all the best advantages, while you are specifically.
I can see that.
I'll be fair for what I just said. Yeah, X-Zero was a 360 exclusive, but it was published by Konami, not Microsoft.
Well, remember, it was after the Hudson Soul package was bought out. But
well, again, to continue, like, think of it like a magic trick. Like when an illusionist is on stage, usually you see him doing a lot of fancy moves that seem like they're just there to be flashy, but what he's actually doing is he's distracting you from the way the trick actually performed.
Yeah.
The answer. Make sure you don't actually know what the actual trick is. So basically, he's distracting you and giving you something pretty to look at before the prestige comes in. For those who don't know, it is considered the final step in a magic trick. Watch Christopher Nolan's The Prestige if you're not familiar with that. It's all about distracting the audience with some flashy stuff or entertaining stuff to distract
game.
from
I have seen Indiana Jones 4. Thank you very much.
True. Yeah. Yeah. It boils down to the fact that you need to when you want to get around this kind of stuff, you need to try your best to throw as many things at the player. Don't allow the player to notice these things. Throw stuff at them, like different angles, or even then, like do some clever thing where instead of looking at the characters, instead you're looking at the background, something like that. Like do something to distract the player. Don't allow him to notice the limited animations you have.
Apologies that we're harping on this audience, but here's the problem. When the game pretty much has no sense of challenge, should we even bother with the gameplay at this point? I mean, don't get me wrong, the gameplay is...
Well, I didn't speed up for the sake of showing also the banter and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. No. I'm perfectly fine with the banter.
If you pay attention, you will notice that.
Yeah, true.
Even when there is banter.
Well, to be fair, the dialogue itself isn't the problem. It's mainly just,
There we go.
the animations more so than anything. I mean, the dialogue itself is fine.
No, the dialogue's not a problem. It's not exactly great either, though. So again, it doesn't help distract from it.
I'm guessing, Dribs, it's sort of your issue of how it's kind of Uncharted light at times.
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to play Uncharted, play Uncharted.
Well, the thing is, again, it's just one of those things where, okay, you want to try to emulate the Nathan and Elena dynamic. Okay, fine. Again, those two characters from Uncharted were inspired by 1940s adventure serials. You know, because that's just common of this particular genre. You know.
Yeah, in fact, if anything, Prince of Persia kind of was already doing that, which makes you wonder why they trying to rip off the Uncharted style. Like, just do what you did.
It's almost like Ubisoft was insecure about the direction we wanted to go.
Much as though I might need a bath, I don't want to take one now.
The plate should allow us to leave.
Yeah, spoilers. The place doesn't fill with water, actually.
Nice long
All right.
clear water, incense,
And if you want your back scratched, you can use the stick they'll give you.
what does the Alchemist do with all of this stuff anyway?
The writings do not say what his experiments were to achieve. Only the horrors they visited on our
It's
people.
science.
I do wish we could have seen more of those experiments, especially seeing as how this is the first time we've gotten an actual scientist in this series.
Let's look at something like, for example, one of the typical things writers like to do to distract Shiro from the problems is throw cute kitties in.
Yeah,
You know?
that
I'm
doesn't,
not. I'm not always swayed by that.
that doesn't always work, Pedro. As a
I mean,
certain
it
show.
helps, but.
I'm sure though. I'm sure throwing kitties would certainly help her with Faladay.
No,
In
Joe.
fact, let me-
No, it will not.
In fact, let
Exactly
me
my
actually
point.
get the line.
There we go.
Ah, Shangri-La, the city of miracles. Seriously,
Actually,
that music-
no, they didn't mention that.
No.
It just made.
Tio, I'm talking about the music. The music just screams Shangri-La,
It's more based on Lawrence of Arabia.
which kind of. Well, you'd be surprised, Tio. Some people like to include Lawrence of Arabia-esque music when it comes to Shangri-La.
Oh, anyway, yeah, another concept. You will notice that some of the rings are connected to switches that temporarily raise those platforms.
Hey, it's
So you
like
need
Crash
to-
Bandicoot.
Mixes up things, supposedly.
Oh no, an enemy move!
What did that hit me? No, seriously, the fight just clipped at that moment. Weird.
Well, that happened. Yeah, that's the thing about
Shit
this game.
happens.
There's a lot of just, well, that happened kinds of moments. Oh no, the prince is dying! Don't worry, Elka's here to save the day. I mean, again, I know that they're there to impede his progress, but at this point, victory is an inevitability.
Maybe here's an idea. What we could have done would have been having an alternate ending if, in a
died
sense
too
that
many
if
times.
if Elika has to save you too many times, at some point she actually dies, and it counts as a soft game over in a sense that you don't have any more the power to stop Ahriman.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people may call it out for being dickish, but at least it would give you some sense of worriment and realize you shouldn't just rely on her.
Abuse on this. Again, no, the real challenge is, try to get the achievement. So after you got it, you can do whatever you want.
These guys might be stupid.
And since a lot of people don't care about achievements here and there,
There's
yeah.
the power plate there.
I really do have to wonder what was the mindset they went in with
remember,
this.
Joe.
Huh?
Well, remember, Joe, that that's getting sun medals and moon medals in Sonic 06 is the only reward you ever get is a fucking achievement on the 360 to show how much of a sad loser you are.
I never bothered.
No, nobody. Sure, I have a completed save file. 360 MP3 that I downloaded on the internet, and that's it. Again, it doesn't unlock anything, but I have it there just to pretend that I did it.
How lovely. You know, I really do have to.
Almost like he knew we were coming.
Like our destiny wasn't twine.
Ooh, mysterious. We're not really gonna get much out of that, are we, Tio? Yo.
Story about the generals. Anyway, this fight is similar to the one at the end of a bit bigger, so you have more freedom of movement. Yes, sorry, Pedro?
This boss battle takes place on one of those. Oh, never mind. Now I'm seeing better.
Full platform. Basically, one trick that the Alchemist sets up his leap is that one of his barriers actually starts having a regenerate health. So if you don't take that out quickly, it will start, regenerating health, making this another war of attrition kind of match.
Oh boy.
So basically, the game forces you constantly to stay on your toes.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Mujahideen to you, sir.
Why the gibberish all of a sudden?
It's dark speak to represent Ahriman.
Ooh,
think of it like think of it like the fictional language in
in the way that Kaido treated.
For me to wait this games.
It's just so random how it kind of comes out of nowhere, especially since he can speak perfectly.
That's the point
good
of
English.
fictional language immediately.
Well, you were bringing up Shadow of the Colossus earlier, Jova? Well, there you go.
Yeah, another similarity.
I think Jova actually, like, this game in particular doesn't seem to be really trying to have any kind of identity of its own. It seems to just be ripping off better games. Like Ueda's games, Uncharted. Like all it
Gee,
does
what a
seems
shock. Ubisoft trying to chase the popular trend of now and then with one of their famous IPs.
Well, a lot of content.
Well, okay. I have nothing. There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration,
Oh.
but when you get cases like this in the DMC reboot that clearly aren't what the series set out to be, you've got a bit of an
Sure.
issue here.
Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from something in particular. I mean, I Am Setsuna, mechanically speaking, is basically a Chrono Trigger clone when you get right down to it, but the great thing is that Tokyo RPG Factory balances that out by having an incredibly unique story that you would never see in a Chrono Trigger game, like a very melancholic, somber, kind of depressing story. Basically, Final Fantasy X story told a lot better.
Is it the same also for Lost Sphere?
Yes. Well, it's not a depressing story. Like, it's not as depressing as I Am Setsuna, but
the gameplay structure.
they threw in some new elements, but it's still basically based on the yes.
Okay.
And also, this game, as long as it's just one of the more competitive games we've seen. Go here, zap. Go here, zap. Go here, zap.
Kind of a similar issue I have with the certain reboots like Bomberman X-Zero.
The basic plot concept of I Am Setsuna today was basically the Final Fantasy X one, where there's this girl who has to sacrifice herself in order to prevent the world from blowing up.
Grandia 2.
However, unlike that Final Fantasy X, the characters treat the matter with a lot more seriousness, and the game, the tone of the
Okay, Dweebs, you wanted something different. Now the Alchemist has poisoned the princess, so we need to reach the fertile ground before something happens. I don't know.
I cannot heal it. Only hold it back.
Like dying, right?
That would be a novelty.
Or
I
corruption.
actually don't remember if something actually happens.
No. Actually, it's more like what happens if a ring wraith stabs you. Basically, apparently, if that corruption goes through, he'll become like one of the 4 generals. Huh. You can infect people like that. Good to know.
Is there a time limit?
No. It's basically just, it gives you a filter like that.
Wow, so the only gameplay change it makes it like your TV's...
There's not even a sense of urgency, like...
Besides, guys, we all know that even if he somehow succumbed, Elka would just rewind time and that would
Sorry,
help him
Jova, can you repeat
survive.
that?
Besides, guys, we all know that if somehow he did get corrupted, Elka would just rewind time somehow and that would allow him to survive, because that is what Elka is here for. See?
It's moral support, Jova.
Yeah, some of the best moral support you'd ever get. Don't get me wrong, I would like that kind of moral support in life to keep me from dying, but this is a video game. I play for some challenge.
Sorry, Jova, everything needs to have an easy mode these days.
And you know what? An easy mode is fine, but a forced easy mode is not. This is a forced easy mode, essentially.
But Joe, what are you talking about? Having an easy mode is an insult to the game.
it doesn't necessarily have to do with that. Games don't necessarily always have to be hard. As long as it doesn't feel like the whole thing is just, you know, holding your hand all the way throughout like this game is. I mean, there are plenty of games out there.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean, though? You know, those people that are like, this is too easy. What do you mean I could just switch the fake off?
I mean,
Yeah.
okay.
Wait, what do you mean?
What?
Those, you know, those things that are meant to, you know,
Okay, do you
No,
have
no,
a...
what do you mean with that statement? I can just switch things off. What does that mean?
I was going to explain.
Go on.
What I mean is that, you know, those little features in games that are meant for beginners. You know, there's like say the like say in the.
I think you're talking about something like the Super Guide in the Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah. Those, and other stuff similar to that.
I'll agree with those as long as it's optional.
If it's even in the game at all, people will go, "No, it's an insult to my gamer skills."
Yeah.
Yeah, well...
Then just
people
play
being whiny.
Dark Souls and get over your ego.
Or even better, just switch it off.
Anyway...
I mean, even a more recent example, you know,
There-
Crash Nitro Fuels, you know, you could just switch off the Nitro wheels there.
Like,
What's
there are
actual
games
wheel?
that are made
Wait,
specifically
hold
for
on.
people who want a difficult time. Like, just play those for
Hold
goodness.
on.
Basically, what the Nitro wheels are, you know, when you drift and you have to press it within a certain time to get a boost,
Yeah.
the wheels glow a certain colour when it's time to boost.
Oh,
That doesn't
that's
really
nice.
make it easier. That just makes it, you know, more convenient to spot.
More intuitive. More intuitive.
I mean, you can switch it off.
Yeah.
And how does that work for online?
I don't know. I don't know about that. I haven't tried that that online. I've only
But yeah,
played a
like-
few online races. Fine, funnily enough.
Anyway, yes, Pedro?
Now, there are plenty in general, even not necessarily stuff like Kirby and stuff like that. There are easy games when you get right down to it. As long as the game is still fun to play, and overall, and the mechanics still manage to get engaging, even despite not being technically challenging in the traditional sense, it can be fine. I mean, something like
Yeah,
well,
Pong.
that's
Pong,
I
that's
would-
simple enough.
well, yeah,
That's a
but I
bit of
don't-
an extreme bout of simplicity, but yeah.
There we go, guys. We managed to heal it. For a moment, I was actually really worried we could have been in danger.
Oh no. I mean, okay, I think the best way to put it is like this. Yes, you can have stuff simpler, easier, or harder. Just have it be that there's a sense of challenge. However, that doesn't mean that some people aren't wrong for complaining about certain things where sometimes you take away the sense of challenge and all you're left with is just tediousness.
Or maybe it's the fact that a later installment of a series that has established itself to be difficult goes too much on the other way and makes it too easy.
Yeah.
That's understandable. Like,
Yeah.
There are some King's Quest purists that complain about King's Quest 7 having the whole thing where if
There
you
we
die,
go.
you just respawn right back where you were.
Gone.
Hold on.
Well, with the save state, you could have in the previous games.
Anyway.
Well, true, true, Theo, but you have to make sure you save states all the
Oh
time.
no.
Oh no,
Oh,
guys, can you change fate whatsoever? I
Oh,
do
I'm,
not
oh, I'm
know.
sorry.
Tell me
Go ahead.
something about you.
Tell you what.
Oh, I don't know. How about, who was your last boyfriend?
Okay. So, just to set the record straight, I know that technically you can get some dialogue bits out of order, but let's keep in mind the last bit we were talking about was about whether or not she'll die, and now we're going to wacky hijinks about if you had a boyfriend.
Tell me about your family.
This is very
Really?
type of the
My
summons.
parents
Is this-
are dead.
Right, now parents are dead. Okay.
Oh snap!
Is this This is so random. I mean, what the heck? So they're gonna go from talking about world peace 1 minute, and then going about what favorite color, what their favorite color is the next.
My uncle.
Mm-hmm.
My parents stayed to protect the city.
Hold on, wait.
Oh wait, backstory.
Yeah, basically, this is the extent of a backstory that you will get of the prince.
Again, why even bother with there being a mystery of whether or not he's the prince? If he's not the prince, then congrats, you're probably just gonna piss off fans. And if he is the prince, well, congrats, you wasted our time with this mystery.
I can imagine how it would go if it were us. I mean, I give an example actually. Hey Jova, are you concerned about the state of the planet at the minute?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's a thing in this game, supposedly.
Hey Jova, what's your favorite color?
Red.
See what I mean? So it's a bit awkward, isn't it?
A good example, just to finish, the good example is that the first Super Mario Galaxy is a very easygoing game compared to the second one. The second one, even Nintendo specifically said, okay, compared to the second one, we're making this one for the more hardcore Mario fans who want more of a challenge. But the first Super Mario Galaxy was a very easy game to get by. Yeah, when you try to go for the all 120 stars, you do get some more challenging bits, but for the most part, the game is more on the relaxing side. And there's nothing wrong with that because the overall gameplay is still very engaging because of the different set pieces and the overall, again, distracting the player with fancy stuff that he gets to see and do. You know, it's all about entertainment value at the end of the day when it comes to these things.
Another good example is Ace Attorney Dual Destinies and being slightly easier in a sense that it's a lot more convenient and not having as much pixel hunting, but still being an enjoyable experience.
Sure.
All right,
We'll
then
talk
in the
more
next
about
part,
this later.
In the next part, we tackle down the Alchemist for good.
See ya.
See you then.
See ya.